John, I have never been better to be on the air with you here in Indianapolis, a place where so many of my dreams have come true.
The Ride with JMV on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Man, it is good to be back. It is good to be back, and I had a fantastic weekend. You know, my best weekends are the weekends in which it is nonstop. And it was a nonstop weekend basically until yesterday. And then at the Casa de Watson, Jeff Watson's place, I got to dial it down a little bit poolside in the sun and some drinking yesterday. So I am in a good spot right now. Now, hopefully, the Colts are in a similar position, a similar spot, because this is going to be interesting at the very beginning. Knowing what we've known in the recent history at the beginning of seasons, knowing what is on the line, and I know that everybody thinks I'm a joker, I'm a toker, and anyway, no, it's the truth. You can't come out and flounder on Sunday. You just can't. And I know that they have the entirety of the season, and I know everybody that does a blog or has a podcast regarding the Colts are going to say exactly how local indie radio guy goes off for the sake of going off. No, local radio guy in Indy goes off because he's been down the path before. Now, he hopes that it's drastically different, but he's been down the path before. Does that make sense to you? No, but a great weekend. And we have plenty to get into the groin health of Matt Gay. We'll see that goes later on this week. Got that conversationally to bring up. TJ McConnell, that happened on Friday's show. It was awesome to talk about. It was great. It's funny, you look back and the fan base, hey, we really like him as a player. It was like you pat him on the head and you go, oh, yeah, you go get him, don't you? You really play hard. And now you look at him drastically different, don't you? Aren't you glad you're on the train with me now? Aren't you glad? Does that make you feel good? We're on the same train? Feeling good? Remember, he plays really hard. He goes out there and he shows everybody else how they should play. Well, no, he goes out there and actually schools dudes that half-ass it defensively, or even dudes that are locked in. That's what he does. And you know what he had to prove that to you? Others like me, just not me, but others like me, he had to prove that to. And you know what else? He had to prove that to the Pacers. He had to prove that to Rick Carlisle. And Rick Carlisle's been around the block a couple of different times. Rick Carlisle can coach him up some basketball, but Rick Carlisle didn't even understand the level that he brought to this team until it was time to understand that, until TJ McConnell gave you no choice, man. That is the type of dude that you should embrace. That guy. I love it. Absolutely love it. And I'm glad that the Pacers certainly found that out. And let's face it, not a lot of teams out there would find that out. They probably would not have even given it a shot to find it out. And let's also look at it this way. It is a perfect scenario. The pace, the offense, the style, fits like a glove, my friends. He does. So, again, that happened on Friday's show, and we yacked that up. Man, Friday, Saturday, it was great to see everybody out at Mystic Waters Campground. What a great weekend. And I've said this before, this is why we all need to be together. We all need weekends like that. All need weekends like that. It was just some fun. And it was fun on two different levels, Friday and Saturday. Was fun from a sports version, hanging out version. Man, some storms rolling through everywhere on Friday night. I got to check out Wolfies. I think now I've been to all the Wolfies. Is that the last Wolfies I needed to get to? Up in Pendleton, I think. I think I've been to all the Wolfies now. But shout out to Wolfies in Pendleton. We watched the end of the Fever game. Can you believe I'm saying that? Yeah, I want to go over and watch the end of the Fever game. That's exactly how I phrased it. I said that very thing. A year ago, you would have had to hit me over the head with a sledgehammer and tell me when they play. But I'm watching that on Friday, the end. And again, it was compelling. I don't care what you think about Angel Reese and how many rebounds she gets, or she gets the rebound, or she's padding her stats. You know, all this crap needs to be put in a pot and cooked together to make everything as entertaining as possible. That's great. Don't you think it's great? Even the cheap shotting to me, while, yeah, you don't so much want to be pushing people down and, cheap. You know what? I take that back. Bring on the cheap shots. Because now you can tell the WNBA officials can recognize it now, whereas I don't know if they recognize it early. Now, this has all the makings in its entirety of just being fun, night in and night out, entertaining. You guys are marking down when they play now because you want to watch. You know what else? It's not all because, well, it's all because initially of Caitlin Clark, but you are what? You're discovering other aspects of it that you enjoy. So I've tried my ass off to get Lexi Hall on this show 9 times here this week. This past week, in the past 7 days, we shall say. And to introduce you to somebody that's playing a role, and honestly, somebody that you didn't know about 3 months ago that was on this team. Now, it's fun as hell, and I love the Chicago, the Sky, and the Fever back and forth. And you have a good and a bad, but it seems like the good and the bad flip-flops a little bit. Same thing happened with the Celtics and the Lakers. The good and the bad flip-flop there, too. With the Pacers and the Bulls, I think a lot of people, if you were just an honest observer, sometimes you go, all right, well, Jordan's getting all the calls, and this is horse blank. And then other times, well, didn't Reggie push off on that game winner? I mean, it just flip-flopped. It was good. And if there's anything we learn about how to keep you around and watching and entertained, it has to be just more than the nuts and the bolts of basketball. I'll tell you what, Nancy Lieberman, what's her name, had that, I think Klein's her last name too, had that thing with Cheryl Swoops going back and forth. Lieberman understands it accurately because it does all start at a grassroots level with her, with Caitlin Clark. But then it expands, and it does help everybody out. Seriously, though, Friday night, I want to go over to Wolfies because I want to catch the end of the Fever game. All right, let's go. And again on Sunday, I think they're playing the Dallas Wings. When you start, and believe me, I'm going to go off on some content programming in a second. But when now we have people that are pissed because you don't have Bally, and it said it was on NBA TV, and you couldn't get it on Sunday. For example, my neighbor, Jeff Watson, has Dish Network. So there was no Bally. But I go over across the road, and I have DirecTV, which sucks. And I had Bally. So now you get people, I can't believe it. Why is this blacked out? I saw our good friend Aunt Paris. He was on the X machine on Sunday. Why is this blacked out? They got all these stupid rules they do. And they have the rule book, too. They have the rules and the rule book. I'm going to tell you what. We live in a world of content hijacking jackasses is what we live in. They want layups of money with not a great deal of work for it. You're the one working for it. And it's only going to get worse. Content hijacking jackasses. And I don't care if we're talking about DirecTV or ESPN. Both of which, and I know that we're an ESPN station, you can smooch my rear just like DirecTV can. ESPN, just take a big smooch. It's all calculated. It's by design. I sent out something yesterday where I'd love to see these two sides, like a live. We have a live camera for everything. There's probably one in the can if I walk in there, the stand-up urinal. There's like live cameras everywhere. Why can't we have a live camera when these nerds and these dorks get with one another and negotiate? And I sent this out yesterday as a joke, right? And then I think Skivvy's responded with, well, it's a day off and nobody's working. And then I responded with a classic Gordon Gekko quote of money never sleeps, pal. And that's what it's all about. They are there to screw you, which is why I still feel good. For 15 years of my existence, I hijacked their product, and I feel good about it. I stole their product. I was stealing it. And I was never caught. Not for 15 years, not until they got wise and started throwing out scrambling codes, of which then some of the eggheads that I knew came up with de-scrambling codes. But I got that big Moonraker satellite dish like it was on top of the stinking Death Star, right? And I got everything. I hijacked all their programming. It was glorious, and I don't regret a moment of it. Not one moment. Got to see everything. That old bearded preacher on S112 who was on 24/7, 365 smoking cigarettes and preaching. Got everything. Even if you wanted that. But now if you have DirecTV, you don't have ESPN. Man, they did it right before LSU and USC. That's pretty funny. And the lines are the best. Yeah, we really do care about you. You're the ones that we care about. Nah, you guys don't care about any of us. You don't. Care about you. So you care about. And believe me, I know. You don't even have to explain it to me about, YouTube TV is the best and this is the best. It'll be the best for the moment, but you're going to get screwed at some point, just like we all get screwed at some point. Because, again, they make up their own rules, and that's the world in which we live. And one of these days, we shall be paying for it all. But you know what? I bet we find a way. With ESPN. I bet. But you'll find a way with ABC. But that was a big weekend topic. I just kind of sit back and wait on it. You know that it's coming. The time where they're going to screw you and they're going to put that message up there. You're going to giggle and laugh, and then everybody's going to get mad and shake their fist. And I'm done with you, DirecTV. Yeah, you go someplace else, and at some point it's going to be the same damn thing for a channel that you I guess I feel good because I like 3 channels. I pay like I like 280. But I really do only watch like 2 or 3, so I'm good. Whatever. We'll find a way. But 15 years, I hijacked their programming. It was a programming heist. And I could not be more happy about it. Maybe more happy about it today than back then. Long live the big Moonraker satellite dishes. That kind of black steel mesh. And you drive by some, that was like, it seemed like in most yards of the 1980s, there was a rite of passage. From 1987 into the early 90s, you're going to drive by somebody's house and they got that thing in their yard. What is this, a TV station? But shout out to you if you're dealing with that right now. And it's kind of the way that it is right there during the U.S. Open and everything, if you care about that. If I'm tennis, I'd go, hey, great, way to go. It's not like anybody pays attention to our ass anyway, and now you're going to go ahead and shut it down. Thanks a lot. Way to go, guys. And nobody's paying 1 ounce of attention anyway. They care more about what George Costanza's having with a fudge sundae in the stands, or there's Hugh Jackman. You guys want me to say that twice? There's Stiller. And believe me, I got enough Stiller for the Knicks series. I don't need any more Stiller right now anyway, so we're all good. Hopefully it works out for you, but My toes are still tapping. Hopefully yours are as well. Colts and Texans in the crosshairs. Nate Atkins going to join us coming up in the 4 o'clock hour today. I do have good news in a very short week, and this is a rite of passage before we start any NFL season. Really, it's when we end an NFL season. It is a couple of days before the draft, and then it's to start the NFL season. Our good friend Rick Venturi is going to join us coming up on Thursday's show, and I'm just going to sit back and let him go. You just wind him up, and you let him go. And believe me, some of his argument is not similar to the argument of me or of you, especially with that secondary, or at least not the hard target position of the secondary that a lot of you like to converse about. But Rick Venturi joins us coming up in the 5 o'clock hour on Thursday. I'm curious to ask you this. You go into that Sunday game. Like, you think about big games and week one games that are important. And believe me, I mean, everybody now is on Ballard, and rightly so, until Ballard proves that he can do anything at all with this team. But also, at the same time, you're kind of given, well, it's the start of a new season, so we shall see. It is either way on Sunday. If this starts out in the absolute crapper, let's just say, for example, if we were all right about the secondary versus the Texans and their skill position players on Sunday, with some, I find it questionable whether Chris is ever going to dig out of the hole that he has dug himself with the Colts fans out there in leading this franchise, leading this organization, and getting results. Like, some of you are going to be skeptical until the very end, and I don't blame you. But if they go out and it becomes exactly what everybody, for the most part, has been talking about all offseason, all spring, all summer, all camp, if it is a mirror image of that, like, Jim Irsay is going to have to go on TV and do some more selling of his general manager. Because that's what I viewed that when he goes on with Greg and Rick during the preseason. I thought two things. And believe me, Jim Irsay believes in his general manager and his head coach. But to me, Jim Irsay was selling his general manager more to you because he understood the situation with the GM and your skepticism with the general manager. He was selling that blue chipness to you. When he was describing Shane Steichen of Shula, and obviously there is no evidence of that just yet, but I think he believes in that. I think he believes Steichen, one of these days, given the opportunity, can be one of the best in the NFL. He was selling his general manager to you, but he was telling you what he really believes with his head coach. And that first game is going to take a toll either way. And you know what? I would not feel bad, and I know you wouldn't either, because that means things are going well and they win a game. A big fat, if the Colts do well and the secondary's not an issue and they play well, if I'm Chris Ballard, I would want to meet with the media the next day and say, hey, I told you so. I mean, you're not gonna. It's not going to happen that way. But if you guys are right, I mean, if we're right about this, I mean, that's going to stick at the very beginning of a season. Now, I've mentioned this to you before. People think that it's pivotal for him. I know James Boyd of The Athletic had a really good article about that today. And James may end up being right, and those that suggest this is pivotal for Ballard this season, you may all be right. But again, how many times have we said that and it hasn't been that way? And I get no real indication by sitting across from him that he has the worries that many of you believe that he has. And I know that he says, I'm not sensitive, and, you know, I believe in myself and all this stuff, and that's okay. But you would get a little bit salty sitting across from a nobody like me who's lobbing questions at you about how you have not lived up to the reputation. And it was like, yeah, whatever. I said a little bit earlier that Mike Damone quote from Fast Times at Ridgemont High, whatever happens, your toes are still tapping. That should be Ballard's line. At least that's how I felt. And again, all this could change 19 different ways, but at the start of the season, that's how I felt about his spot right now. He doesn't seem to be nearly as worried about it as a lot of you and a lot of folks that cover the Colts. Just so you know. Nate Atkins in the 4 o'clock hour. Greg going to join us coming up at the bottom of this hour, too. Man, week number 2 of the high school football season. And it sounded like everybody got the fans out of the stands before any inclement weather came in. I saw the photo down at CG. My daughter was actually there where the north end zone and the stands there was wind blown. I think they called it a microburst. I'm not nerdy radio weather guy here, but a microburst that had blown the bleachers up on top of the north end zone goalpost and taken that out. A lot of games went on. How about that Avon Ben Davis? How about Ben Davis being 0-2? Can you be 0-2 and still be a top 5 best team in the state of Indiana? Hell of a weekend. We'll talk to Greg about that coming up at the bottom of the hour as well. And we'll work in more Fever, more Pacers with McConnell officially signing that extension earlier today. Yeah, I know a lot about college football. And let's just face it, both got off to the start that Purdue and IU, and even factor in Notre Dame. I know, Notre Dame. I'm a hater of Notre Dame. I'm not a fan of Notre Dame. Like the breakdown of Notre Dame during a Notre Dame game and after will drive me insane, but it's all right. I'm not that mad about it. But 2 things. 2 wins by Purdue, and Indiana State was an absolute offensive mess, which nobody should be surprised. And then IU and the Kurt Cignetti era getting underway down in Bloomington. And also, I think what you saw was an opportunity that the new head coach had. He's trying to set all these different standards here. All right, they're under new rule. There's a new regime. What do they say in the Westerns? There's a new sheriff in town. And that's Kurt Cignetti. And he not only got the opportunity to get a win and to sink the flag into the ground down in Monroe County, but also got to address an issue over the years because of futility or because of, hey, you know what, the party's over there and I need to be over there. What do they call it now? FOMO, the fear of missing out. I didn't even know that until last week, James. Did you know what FOMO meant? Have you ever heard that?
No, not.
Have you ever heard anything, James, in your entire life? No.
It seems like it does.
FOMO, the fear of missing out. I think Galeros is the one that brought that up, and I'd never heard of that before in my life. FOMO.
I didn't know what FUBAR meant.
FUBAR, well done over there. But FOMO, the fear of missing out. And maybe that's it for the IU student fans. Yeah, I don't want to miss out on the party that's out there, so I'm going to leave third quarter-wise. Or, maybe it's just being set in their ways of the past and the product not being great. But the new head coach got to address a lot of things, including that, to help continue to build that momentum in Bloomington. I didn't think that was a bad thing. Like, you wanted to stay, don't get me wrong. But when you have the coach that's able to address it in that fashion, because it happened to him, and because you win, and then all you hear from the students is, well, this and that, and you can't change the culture in one game and blah, 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 whatever. Well, at some point, it does have to change. But it starts with the new regime, the new head coach, and the success of just something that has been basically dormant for so many years, so many decades, the feel of FOMO, the fear of missing out, is more overwhelming than, oh, hell, what's going to happen here in the fourth quarter? Get into that coming up a little bit later on as well. All right, the start of the NFL is later on this week. We are all over that. IndyCar's got one more race. Milwaukee for a double dip Saturday and Sunday. Mark Miles said something about paddle. If you cared about that right now, I'd bring it up, but I don't think you care about it. At that and more at 239-1070. Email address JMV at 1075thefan.com. Inside the AAA Membership Lounge via YouTube Live. Thank you so much for watching in there. We are going to get busy after a great weekend, and now we're going. I have bullseye event passes for you. The Colts pregame. I've got passes over the course of this afternoon, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday as well. So that's coming at you. Listen to win. And James tells me this. We have Jeff Lynn's ELO tickets to give away, correct? That's Saturday. I've got to do the JMV takeover, and I can't go. ELO, seriously, has not been around here since 1981. Think about that for a moment. That is before my puberty. Before your good friend John hit puberty. That's the last time ELO played. It was in Bloomington in 1981, and Hall & Oates opened for them at Assembly Hall. You believe that? A prepubescent JMV's running around Greene County and thinking he has all these years to hear Jeff Lynne and company sing Don't Bring Me Down. I'll be damned. Not until this Saturday. We got tickets for that all week long as well. Thursday and Friday shows to Joe's Grill, Castleton. And then on Friday, the Ale Emporium in Greenwood. We've got tickets for you on Friday. That's a Bud Light Blue Friday and our Larceny Bourbon Locks and Luna Azul Tequila Shots. Joe's Grill in Castleton with Brent Halverson, our betting analyst. That's on Thursday. Going to be a busy week. Just sit back, relax, and have some fun with us. The stream, the app, HD Radio, and 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
He looks like Rascal Flatts guy.
Got a cool soul patch.
He does, and a buttery smooth voice.
Oh, yeah.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Oh, I got a lot of stuff to give away here. I got to give a shout-out, too. James, the producer, every day for me, Monday through Friday. AJ did a great job of the JMV takeover on B105.7 on Saturday night. I mean, a tremendous job. And Cam, the engineer, they actually had to, and we figured this out on the fly, that we had to, there's a board, you had to run the board live on site, which Cam did, and then AJ did it here back upstairs on 5 in the B105.7 studios, and it worked out fantastically. I had a blast. Shout out to Brent Halverson, the awesome Lisa Halverson. My man Brandon made grilled cheese out there for donations. It was awesome. I think Slow and Low and Broad Ripple was the barbecue guy. Awesome. Sarah brought Papa John's pizza. So everybody, it was just a party. Good times. I think at some point, if we continue to do that, which we probably will with the success of the first two, that you're going to have to come out and be involved in it. Jeremiah, who I saw along with Melissa on Saturday night at my mom's, cleaning up storm damage and learning content like FOMO, fear of missing out. I had no idea. And Galeros is the one that told me. I thought, what are you, 12, Galeros? I already knew what FUBAR was. The yard is almost FUBAR. FOMO, the fear of missing out. JMV, it was very cheap, even if you paid. If I remember, G57 was ESPN. Indeed, my grandest memory of having my satellite dish and stealing and ripping off and hijacking all of then DirecTV's content, all these stations' content without paying for it. It was stinking glorious. Kiss my rear end. 15 years of it. And if I have to pay for it now, I have to pay for it now. But 15 years of doing you for free. I feel better about that now than I ever have. But S118 was the one I'll always remember. That's American Triple Ecstasy right there, Gary. 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. Andy Moore, Automotive Group Hotline. Saw him last week before he started a week where he was basically all over the U.S. map. Greg Rakestraw joins us now. Hello, Greg. How are you?
I'm good, buddy. How was Mystic Waters this weekend?
Mystic Waters was great. And here's what made it great. It's not me. It's certainly the people that join us and the listeners that are a part of it. But you know this from working with them. Cam, the engineer, and AJ, the producer, they were awesome. And we found out this weekend that you have to have two boards being run because you're basically broadcasting from two different locations. It's amazing. Great job.
Well, first of all, Cam, I'm just happy you got to work with like actual people. Normally he's stuck with me.
Yes.
And we're in like a booth someplace. So we actually got to interact with other human beings. I feel good for Cam for that reason alone.
Yes. Cam enjoyed everything out there, too, especially about 10:30 when everybody was really getting pretty much in the bag. Cam was loving it.
And Cam still has his young guy tolerance, so hopefully he outlasted everybody else.
He absolutely did. Anything stand out to you? I mentioned this earlier about Friday night because you had storms roll in basically central Indiana and some of south central Indiana that modified some schedules. Some games were completed on Saturday. You know, some weren't, whatever the case, whatever the decision might have been. Anything outside of Avon, Ben Davis, and that two-point conversion, the winner for Avon, and Ben Davis maybe being the best 0-2 team to start the season of all time in the state of Indiana? Anything outside of that stand out to you?
What I would say is this. You start playing the comparison game, or you start seeing who has improved the most from week 1 to week 2. I would say the fact, if you play the comparison game, Cathedral beat Ben Davis by 18 points in week 1. Brownsburg beat Cathedral then by 16 points in week number 2. What also does tend to happen, though, because we tend to forget we're talking about 15, 16, 17-year-old, sometimes 18-year-old kids playing these games, is that often the team that was the best team on Friday isn't necessarily the team that's the best team on Saturday. And so being able to kind of turn it back on again a second day, a lot of times the team that's leading on Friday night isn't the team that's leading on Saturday. For example, Carmel led Westfield 10-0, as that game got postponed on Friday night. Westfield comes from behind to win that game, then on Saturday afternoon or Saturday evening when they resume. So, crazy things happen when you play in a scenario like that one.
It's like Greg Rakestraw is on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. So Ben Davis 0-2 on the season, right?
That is correct, yes.
And is there been a better 0-2 season to start, or I should say start team-wise this early in the season as we've seen the Giants?
We still have to figure out exactly how good Ben Davis is. We have to figure out how good Avon is. My buddy Rob Gibson that is there. Give him enough time. They're going to be successful at Avon, but I have not eyeballed them yet. Cathedral is a team that, again, it's Cathedral, so they should always be good. But at the same time, the guy that was the starting quarterback for them for the last 3 years, started a Division I football game on Saturday night at San Diego State, and they lost other key defensive players off of that team as well. So, we had kind of put Ben Davis up on this pedestal as the defending state champs because they got a kid like Mark Zachary because they have multiple Division I players. But there's also this quote that has been going through my mind that was from Kevin Vanderbush, who is now the retired strength and conditioning coach at Ben Davis. And when he and I would talk before games last year, John, he would say that senior class may have been the most self-coached, self-motivated team he had ever been around in 40 years. And so the fact that a younger group is having a little bit of struggle then the next year kind of tells me just maybe how special that senior class was. So I think Ben Davis can still be very good. And again, I think this year there is not a dominant team in 6A, but we're actually going to see Ben Davis on Friday night. We have switched games on Channel 23. We were slated for Warren Central and North Central. Because of the great start that Pike has had in terms of beating Zionsville and Fishers, we're going to go to Pike instead. We're going to pick up the Ben Davis and Pike game on Friday night. So we will learn a little bit more about both of those teams as of about 72 hours from now.
And speaking of Danny O'Neill, 22 of 33, 214 and 2 TDs in his first start as a true freshman for San Diego State out of Texas A&M Commerce. I guess what stands out is I think he basically did what they wanted him to do. And that's validated the reason why they started him against that team to get his feet wet. And that was a good way to do it.
Anyway, when you are a true freshman in a year, or I shouldn't say a year, in a time when everybody in college football is older. Christ, Miami's got a guy that's in its 9th year of college football that is playing this year. You multiply it times 2, times 9, and that's what Danny is in terms of years of life. So in an era where you are playing more 23, 24, and 25-year-olds, that you have an 18 or 19-year-old that gets to start, albeit against a team that is not – they're not too far from being a Division II team, is now an FCS team. That's still pretty doggone impressive.
What do you think about we'll start down in Bloomington, Kurt Signetti and his era officially underway with a win this past weekend as well. What do you think starting down in Bloomington Saturday afternoon?
Just took care of business. Nothing too flashy. Very effective. Just kind of go out and get a W. And again, because of the amount of transfers they have in, even though they are new to Bloomington, that is very much a veteran team. And it's largely a group that has won at either the Sun Belt level, has won at the Mid-American Conference level, and now can they win at a Big Ten level. And so beating FIU 31-7 is what you're supposed to do. I don't think we're going to learn anything else against the Leathernecks of Western Illinois on Friday. That should be pretty lopsided as well. Again, the real test of mettle of this group is going to be what happens, say, in early October. And again, I don't have these amazing expectations for them, in terms of the teeth of the Big Ten schedule. Obviously, the next big game is next Saturday when you make that trip out to the Rose Bowl to play UCLA. But they avoided stepping on the banana peel at home in game number 1, which is what they're supposed to do.
Greg, Indiana State got paid $500,000 for that game and that beatdown at the hands 49-0 of the Purdue Boilermakers. How much do you think can Ryan Walters take away from that game. I know what Indiana State takes away. They keep the lights on for another month down there. But what can the Boilermakers take away from that?
That was their one bingo free pass right there, because nothing else is easy for them the rest of the season. Knowing that your two non-conference games are Notre Dame and then at Oregon State, and then you get into the teeth of Big Ten play. So that was the equivalent of your free square. You guarantee, and again, they're gonna win some games in West Lafayette. I have no doubt about that. But that's the one this is the one bit of easy money that you had all year long, and Purdue looked the part on Saturday.
Notre Dame, your impression on Saturday night and that win at Texas A&M?
Almost a lot of the same things I would say about Indiana, with the exception of knowing Texas A&M. We'll see how it plays out. But Texas A&M should be amongst the 2 or 3 best teams you play all year. And to win in that environment, even if Texas A&M is going to be a mid-level SEC team, that's not a mid-level environment having to win in College Station. So did Notre Dame play their best? Probably not. But they just won by double digits against a ranked team on the road. That's all you needed to do. No further description is needed. Job well done. On to the next.
He's the Greg Rakestraw. He's on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. So the Colts open up. You'll do the post-game show coming up on Sunday following the Week 1 Texans and Colts encounter. I gave a what-if a little bit earlier, and this what-if is not good for Chris Ballard. What if the fans and most of the media is right about this secondary, and they get torched up, torn up by the skill position players offensively of the Texans? You talk about bad ways to start the season. I couldn't think of one that could be worse than that set of circumstances, Greg.
No, that would not be good, and there's obviously little nothing you can do about it now. This group needs to win, and obviously the time for patience, and again, the Colts timeline has been, a bit messed up by the fact of you didn't have Anthony Richardson for most of last year, yet you won anyway. You could kind of preach patience a season ago, but when you have a 9-win season, when by a play call or a missing player or whatever, you miss the chance to, get to the playoffs, win the division, host a playoff game, all in one fell swoop, and when you bring back so many of the pieces that were brought back, and it's, hey, you do that because you think you've got the pieces to win. Well, then you have to do exactly that. So, even the areas that are thought to be potential weaknesses for this football team need to play well. Now, the first 2 quarterbacks you're going to play are fantastic, but given the fact that it's been since 2013 since you last won a season-opening game, and knowing whom you are playing and knowing what is at stake, John, you wouldn't be going overboard as you are often want to do.
Yes.
And saying things are a must-win. I'm not saying the season is lost if you don't, but, man, life is a whole lot better around here, and it's a whole lot easier if that's a W come Sunday afternoon.
You don't beyond the wins, and I know that's what matters. There's really no beyond with the exception of what we do. But if you go beyond that, nobody wants to have to deal with that crap. It's going to be awful.
Right.
It will be. Week 2 can't come quick enough, and then you're going on the road against a playoff team from a year ago, and one of those teams, much like the Colts. It's interesting to see the top 7 teams of the NFL that were team run it back. The only one that didn't make the postseason is the one at the top of the list, and guess who that is?
I think I know who that is. Yeah, so, I get the reference. So
yeah.
This is to a different scale, but since you and I have such a similar time frame of reference in terms of doing this, air quotes, professionally around these parts, that is the feeling I remember having at the AFC Championship game in 2006. When the Colts are down 21-3, and I'm like, for the love of God, I've had this conversation the last 3 Januaries.
Yes.
I don't think I can stomach doing this again. And thank God I didn't have to. I'm not to that point yet about, post-game shows of season openers. But, John, allow me to put this in perspective. This is my 13th year of being the host of the Colts post-game show. The opening day record of the team during that time is 1-11. So I've got a lot of practice at that post-game show. I really don't want to do it again.
Do you remember how many years I've done the pregame show? Because I don't.
I think 37 at this point. Does that sound about right?
Is it 37? I don't think have I done it for 10 years? The pregame show?
I'm pretty sure that your time frame and my time frame, if not completely identical, are very close.
Yeah. So
but who's counting, John?
Let's just
Who's
say,
counting?
for example, we'd have the same numbers right here. If you're Chris Ballard, the fans cannot be right and justified on this one, especially if you get torched in a similar fashion in which you did in losing out on winning the division for the first time since 2014 back in January. That would be an absolute nightmare scenario, I would think, if you're Chris Ballard. So
correct.
But anyway.
We'll borrow this from the Raiders. Just win, baby. Don't care how. Find a way to win the game on Sunday.
All right, man. We'll see you down there coming up on Sunday. Have a great week.
Yes, sir. You too.
Greg Rakestraw is on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. Nate Atkins, top of the hour, and a lot more, including ELO tickets, Jeff Lennon ELO, and I've got Bullseye Event Group passes for you as well. Listen to win those. There could be a pair coming at you relatively soon. Hint, hint. 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Nate Atkins, top of the hour. I think Pat Boylan's going to drop in here. Man, the Fever. Couple of wins. Great game on Friday. Equally the same on Sunday, and I think a lot of us were watching it too. That's nice. JMV, in 1984, my brother used a metal snow sled and coax cable attached to the roof and pointed it to the INB Bank Tower. We got HBO for a year until TVQ caught up with us. Nothing better than Porky's, even snowy, when you're 16. Oh, the shower scene. It's got a mole on it. This ball breaker. HBO began scrambling in 86. $50 fine. Dad was mad. Yeah, I don't feel bad. I went 15 years hijacking programming from DirecTV. Maybe not DirecTV the entirety of the 15 years, but once DirecTV became something, and I don't feel 1 ounce sad about it now. Screw them. Seriously, screw them. And ESPN for that matter. You guys can both take a tremendous smooch off of all of our rear ends. Seriously. And I know this will now spawn a debate over, well, you got to get YouTube TV or you got to get this and you got to get that. And I understand. But at some point, you're going to be griping too, because we are all here to get screwed by our content providers. Remember that. In fact, James, we're the only ones that aren't doing it. We're the only ones that lay it all out for you, give you all that you want right here, all that you want. Monday through Friday, then on Saturday, it's whatever you want. This is what we do. You're welcome. ELO tickets coming up before the end of the show. Give away a Bullseye pass. Want to right now? Couple of passes for you. Bullseye Event Center. Hayes and Company brings it to you. I'll be down there coming up on Sunday morning at 9 a.m. Little ride to kickoff, I believe, 9 until 10. Couple of passes for you. 239-1070. I got him all week. Kyle Kinnett, talked to him on the way in. He is good to go if you want to go before the Colts game. Colts VIP tailgate passes with bullseyeeventgroup.com. You can get them on your own or win them if you're caller 9 right now. It's 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
The Ride with JMV.
Smokey, this is not Nam. This is bowling. There are rules.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
That's James over there. I'm John. Thank you for joining us. We've got more Bullseye Colts VIP tailgate passes to give away. Actually, all week long. Thursday, Joe's Grill. I saw Nally and the gang on Saturday night. They were out with us at Mystic Waters Campground. Me, our betting analyst, Brent Halverson. Thursday, Rick Venturi. And we're just going to go ahead and cut him loose for the entire 5 o'clock hour to let him go. So be ready for that coming up on Thursday. We all need it. A little jolt before the season officially gets underway. And then on Friday, I don't think I have done a show from the Greenwood Ale Emporium, but that's where I'll be coming up on Friday. The one thing I know about the Greenwood Ale Emporium, much like all the ale emporiums, it is always packed. So that is Emerson and County Line on Friday. That's a Bud Light Blue Friday. I will have Texans and Colts tickets to give away for you. So that'd be great if you joined us. Ale Emporium in Greenwood coming up on Friday. Boylan's going to talk about the fever surge. Cheryl Swoops maybe thrown in there. And a lot more for you. Yeah, just the interest level of football now beginning. Seems like it is still there. And some in a stupid way. And some are just using it for their own stupid agendas. But it has been fun basketball to watch. You cannot deny that. They're not missing 15 layups in games anymore and things like that. So it's been more fun to watch. I want to say this, nifty passing, dime droppage. There's been some good stuff. Pat Boylan at the 5 o'clock hour on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. He covers the Colts. A lot to cover right now. Start the season for the Indianapolis Star. Nate Atkins is with us. Hello, Nate. How are you?
Doing well. It's week one, so what's not to be happy about?
Well, let me tell you this. You've probably never had a question framed up to start out an interview like this, but I have to ask, so how's Matt Gay's groin?
Yeah, that is some great framing. Great question. That's something that we just found out about this week, that he has an injury heading into week one, which, I don't know. I'm interested to find out more about that, if that had anything to do with why he kicked so little in the preseason. It's something I kind of had wondered about if he was healthy. I've just never seen a kicker kick that little on an entire preseason, especially one that was coming off the struggles he had at the end of last year. And they just kept saying, we believe in Matt, we believe in Matt. We have absolutely no worries. But Chris Ballard made mention that there was something he was dealing with late last year, but he didn't want to get into it. And then here we find out there's a growing injury. So we have to see. We'll get out there and practice tomorrow and then Thursday and Friday and see if he's kicking. I'm sure they'll give him, usually with situations like this, you give him a rest day on Wednesday, but if he's not going by Thursday and Friday, you'll see they signed Spencer Schrader to the practice squad to have that ability to call him up if they need to. But obviously in a game like week one, it's not what you want to deal with when you know you have to score a lot of points to handle C.J. Stroud and the Texans. So it's a curveball that they were not hoping to deal with at this point, but it's something they have to monitor.
Now he's Nate Atkins of the Star on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. We'll start right here with the matchup in week number one. The Texans have made some not-so-subtle changes with their roster in hopes to improve to the level where they can compete in the AFC at the very top. The Colts, obviously, basically the same here. What have you taken away from the additions in how you view both sides of the football, the Texans looking going into Sunday's week number one matchup?
Yeah, two very different approaches to being in very similar spots. Two teams had the same record heading into the last week, came down to the final play. They come back with second-year quarterbacks, and one of those teams, the Texans, they want to level up, and they're the one that won the division, that won a playoff game, so maybe they feel like they're just a little closer to the Super Bowl doorstep than the Colts do. That's certainly how they've operated when they went out and they won the bidding war against the Colts to get Danielle Hunter. But they kept adding, with Stephon Diggs, and Joe Mixon and some other guys like that. And the Colts have decided to run everything back. They did try Daniil Hunter, but when they didn't get him, they really haven't shown much interest in anybody else of a big name who's outside their building. So they spent crazily to get everyone back that was, a starter for them who's a free agent. So they feel like, if they have that team that was in Week 18 last year that was a fourth down play short of beating the Texans, and they could add Jonathan Taylor and Anthony Richardson to it, they think, that could be a team that could beat the Texans. But at the same time, they seem like a team that's not ready to say we want to go to the Super Bowl or we believe we can. They seem like they're still kind of in wait-and-see mode is the vibe I get from Chris Ballard in the front office of why they're just being a little hesitant to take it further than that. And the Texans, they feel like they've got to break through now that they've got C.J. Stroud and they've won a playoff game and a division title. And we'll see. I mean, there's trade-offs to it a little bit. The Texans have they get a lot of attention for the star power. There are some depth concerns and some weaknesses on their roster, namely on the offensive line and different depth levels of the defense, I think are going to get glossed over until we see them in football action. But you also see that they have the kind of superstars that can make those plays in the playoffs, and we'll see if the Colts have that. They believe that Anthony Richardson and Jonathan Taylor can be that if they can stay healthy, which is a big question, but they also have to get there. And this team hasn't gotten to the playoffs since I arrived here in 2021. So they have some things to prove in their own way, too. And, it's just we'll really get to learn a lot more about these teams, obviously, this week, getting to see them up front. And it'll be our first test of to see whether those approaches work, whether the Texans' investments, can give them a higher level, and whether the Colts have enough to handle that and rolling back everything, namely rolling back a secondary that was beat up the last time they faced the Texans, but also got torched the last time they faced the Texans. So that's kind of the big thing to watch right now.
Man, I get a lot here for you. And Nate Atkins joins us at the Star. I want to play off of what you mentioned about the way that Chris Ballard has put this together. And I had mentioned when I talked to him out at camp a couple of weeks ago, it felt like he was saying it too, that he doesn't feel any pressure whatsoever. And it felt like he didn't feel any pressure. And then you mentioned how he handled it. You think somebody in his position would be feeling it. He certainly doesn't show it. And, maybe it is just Chris Ballard not being overly sensitive. But I just gather that this year is not as vital as many that are fans and some in the media would suggest it to be for Ballard, even though it's been a ridiculous going into year number 8 run here.
Yeah, I mean, I think they expect to make the playoffs. They expect to take a step forward for the reasons I outlined with having Jonathan Taylor and Anthony Richardson back. But their estimation is it's a step. It needs to be a step and not necessarily a leap. And so if they have a season like the Texans just had, where their quarterback, who's young, stays healthy, gets better throughout the year, shows promise, they get into the playoffs and they win a playoff game and then they get bounced, I think they would feel encouraged by the way that season went, and maybe that would get them closer to a place where they want to, start investing more in outside talent. It's hard to know for sure because since I've gotten here, they just haven't done a lot of that. Now, they did some of it when they had the Matt Ryan experiment, and on defense that year, this is what's very interesting to me is they came off a 9-8 season that year where they missed the playoffs, and they added Matt Ryan. But they went out and they got Stephon Gilmore, and they traded for Yannick Ngakoue. And there was obviously plenty of moves that fell apart. They didn't do enough on offense. But there was an effort to chase a little bit more of the ceiling on defense. And I'm just surprised that we haven't had some kind of move like that. Again, they tried one type of move like that with Daniil Hunter. But it's just been surprising that it was just Daniil Hunter or let's wait till next year to think about that kind of a move when there were just other options like that out there. We've been over them 1,000 times, whether it's Justin Simmons or Quandre Diggs or, there's trade options out there. And so this is just where they're at. They really want to see, can Anthony Richardson and Jonathan Taylor, which I've never seen play together, can they hit this high-octane offense ceiling, and can the two of them stay healthy? Can they be healthy by the time they get to the postseason? Everything seems to be concerned about, will we get enough return on investment in the players that we were to go out and sign and bring in? And it's just a different philosophy than some other teams that have been in this exact spot, like the Bengals the year after Joe Burrow's rookie year was injured. They won 4 games. That team went out and they signed Trey Hendrickson and Von Bell, and they went to the Super Bowl the next year. The Eagles, they went 9-8 with Jalen Hurts. This was when Shane Steichen was the play caller. He only threw 16 touchdowns, but they went out. They traded for A.J. Brown. They signed James Bradbury, and they went to the Super Bowl. And so other teams are giving themselves a little bit more of that chance to, what if this all comes together? Can we surge and get all the way there? And can we make use of this year on the timeline of a rookie quarterback contract? The Colts their mindset is more to slow play these things and build gradually, and they have to get to the playoffs first, and they have to win a playoff game, and then they'll convince themselves maybe that it's time to chase something more. And I don't know. Maybe that's the way to go. Maybe they'll roll this money into next year, and they'll have more than other teams, and maybe at some point we will see them go all in. But it's hard to just forecast when that'll be because I've never seen them do it before.
So, and this is the second question I had for you. So do you think the philosophy that's always been prevalent around here is that Jim Irsay will scratch out a check for whatever Chris Ballard wants if they believe in it and it's going to help the team? Is there a chance that we should be talking about that philosophy changing? And they're going to say, well, look what we're paying for guys that we kept and all this and whatever. But has there been a change in that particular philosophy? Because that's always a go-to for everybody. And in this past year, I think it's given you reason to pause and think about if there is still truth behind it.
Well, I think it's important to note that in Jim Irsay's time as an owner, he's not really ever invested in outside free agents that much. They had that one year when they went after some of the guys on the back nine of their careers, like Andre Johnson and Frank Gore. And by today's standards, that was not all that aggressive. But Jim Irsay brought that up just a year ago to say, look, we tried it once and it didn't work. And I think it's a shared philosophy. I've always felt that, and that's why I think Chris Ballard has this security about him, is he's doing exactly what his owner seems to want, which is build through the draft, establish core players that way, re-sign them, kind of make these guys these career-long Colt players, and do the best you can that way without bringing in a lot of outside players. And I think if Jim Irsay really wanted something more than that, if he was like, no, we need to go chase the Super Bowl, and his GM was just saying no, we would sense more of that friction. Instead, every time that Jim Irsay is asked about the way that his GM operates, he calls him blue chip GM. He thinks it's absurd to even consider that he'd be on the hot seat. Jim Irsay can speak in some hyperbole sometimes, but everything that they've ever said or done since I've been here has felt like a shared vision of, we just want to draft and develop and pay our in-house guys, and we don't want to spend money unless we know for sure that we're going to get a return on it. And they really believed. The one time I saw them kind of believe in doing that was that 2022 team with Matt Ryan, where they were so convinced that if they got rid of Carson Wentz and got a kind of stable leader quarterback, that they would have this real team that could challenge people. And they did spend one decent outside contract on Stephon Gilmore. Still wasn't crazy, but it was a lot more than they're doing now. And I think they felt a little burned by that. Not that Stephon Gilmore wasn't awesome, because he was. He won them 2 games and was a Pro Bowl type of player, but they won 4 games as a team. And to them, they felt like they didn't end up getting the result they need. So they have to feel certain to get the result that's going to come by making these moves to do it. And it's just hard to operate that way until, who knows, maybe they get to the point where in a year from now, if they're coming off an 11-win season with a playoff win, maybe that's when they believe it. But that's why it's been hard to see that kind of movement so far.
So the all chips in era is officially over, correct? Because you can't go for all chips are in and then play it this way financially. You just can't. Or play it this way with your guys, especially when you're on the outside looking in and going into week number 1 and you know what happened to you. The reason why you're on the outside looking in is staring you square in the face in week number 1 to start 2024. So you can't have both. So clearly the ship has sailed for the all chips in era.
Well, there's not many parts of me or many people who want to go back and relitigate 2022. But I honestly think the all chips in, as it played out, was a message to Carson Wentz and other players about being all in for themselves when they show up in the building. That was a very kind of pointed message because they weren't even all chips in as a franchise in terms of investment that offseason. Like I said, they did some. They did more than they're doing now. They signed Stephon Gilmore. But they had some major holes that same offseason at tight end and left tackle and right guard, and they didn't want to – they did this run it back thing then. So I've never seen them really be an all-in type. I mean, you compare them to like how the Eagles operate, how the Texans are operating. I don't know that they've ever done that. So I don't know that there's ever been a true all-in time to move away from. It's been more than it is now, and right now it's just a very far extreme from that.
Yeah, there have been a lot of promises made and a lot of promises not kept. So it's been even beyond the all chips in thing too. But I mean, it just seems like for what, and Nate, I know a lot has happened, and you're right. 2022 was a clown show where maybe the owner just steps back and says, all right, that can never happen again because that was awful. But, it makes you wonder, where they are now in terms of, Jim, sticking his face in there and trying to be a part of it, whether that has to do with philosophy or health situations or all that kind of floats around, I think, in the average Colts fan and those that cover the Colts in your head on a daily basis now as to where this team is going. Because a lot has been promised and rarely, if ever, has been delivered.
Yeah, I mean, you'd like to see some results. As we've gone through it so many times, I mean, they felt like they had something really building in 2018 after they win a playoff game and feel like they fixed a lot of the problems around Andrew Luck. They got a little bit of a grace period, with just how historically crazy that situation was at the most important position. But it's been half a decade since Andrew Luck retired. It just hit 5 years last month. So at some point, yeah, it's not going to fly anymore to keep going back to that. And they've got to find, they moved on. They found the quarterback. First time they've actually gone to the draft again since Andrew Luck drafted a high upside quarterback. And somewhere in here, we're going to need to see that. And there have been some promises too. I mean, a year ago, just before they took Anthony Richardson, Jim Irsay at the owners meeting said that because they'll have a quarterback on a rookie contract, they'll have a lot more money available, and he promised that the money will be spent. So he didn't say exactly when. So maybe the plan is we have to wait till the back half of that till we know. So there's going to be 2 more years after this, and a third year if they and they pick up the 5th-year option on Anthony Richardson if they get to that point. But yeah, I mean at some point you are judged on the results, and I think that point's already arrived. I was kind of there last year, and going forward here. Even last year was a little bit of a pass because it was a rookie quarterback, and then obviously he got injured. But moving forward, they've got to find a way to not, they can't get hung up on all that either. They chose a quarterback with a dual threat style who's going to have a bit of a risk to injury, and they're just going to have to find a way as best they can to support him, to accentuate what he's great at, to minimize the risk, to back him up, to be able to win in other ways. This is the game that everyone's playing in this league right now. And, yeah, you're held to the same standard as everyone else, which at some point is winning something more than just going 9-8. So I think last year was very encouraging in terms of finding a coach that people can believe in, finding, a lot of fixing the offensive line and a lot of that stuff. But, yeah, the way I view this season and where they're at now, if they don't make the playoffs this year, it's a disappointment, and there's just no other way around it.
So Nate Atkins of the Star covers the Colts on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. So I did want to ask you this. Is this more from what you see as the start of the season here, a 10-win team or a 7-win team?
So we every year we do our game-by-game predictions, and so that's where you actually sit down and figure out the teams they're facing and what they're going to do. And I have them at 9-8. So I guess I'd say closer to 10 wins, mostly because I'd say that, I do think that Shane Steichen improved a lot in terms of his ability to adjust and be flexible to losing anybody. So as much as this season does feel like it hinges the ceiling on the health of Anthony Richardson and Jonathan Taylor, we won't know that until we actually see it play out. They just won 9 games with Gardner Minshew and very little Jonathan Taylor last year, and it's a tougher schedule. But I just think Shane has shown enough. The offense has enough different ways to be successful with the receiving core kind of surging, with the offensive line looking so strong, and then those two players in the backfield and even a backup quarterback this year who I think is at least as good as the one they had last year. So I think Shane Steichen's going to bring them a floor of at least 7 wins, just kind of being out there. It would really take something catastrophic to me to not hit that number. And then I think they'll be competitive. I really think their offense is going to be pretty explosive and pretty impressive in the games when they do have that healthy backfield. So it's about how many do they miss them for, and then the rest of the games, can they hold up enough on the back end of the defense, because the pass rush is still very impressive. They can still stop the run really well. So there's just enough in enough areas that give them a really high floor. But it's wondering, can they break through to something higher than that? But I think this is going to be a team that wins between 8 and 10 games. And then whether that's enough to get in the playoffs and do something, I think that's the question that I'm waiting to see.
Do you think that 9 wins gets them to the postseason?
I think that if they go 9-8, that they could get a wild card. I think it's going to take 10 or 11 to win the division. Although I think that's going to be real competitive between Texans, Jaguars, and Colts. But I just think this year, with all those other teams made improvements in the offseason, Texans won 9 games a year ago, or 10 games a year ago, and the Jaguars won 9 games a year ago. Those teams are better than they are now. So I think it'll take 10 plus to win the division, but if they go 9-8, I think they could end up in the wild card spot. It's right on the edge there, though. You want to win 10 games. If they win 10, then they're going to go to the postseason.
What's your idea on Josh Downs and the first time we see him in a regular season game?
It's a big question that will happen this week, other than Matt Gay, is to see if he's out there. They've, other players that have had injury issues lately outside of Matt Gay, they've pretty much told us, we expect him back. Juju Brents is like that, Dallas Flowers, Trey Sermon, and they've come back. Josh Downs, it's been hopeful. Now, he has progressed pretty well. It didn't look great at the beginning when he was on a scooter, and his game relies so much on that ankle to change a direction. So initially, I just thought that it was most likely they're going to have to play it safe, and he would miss at least a game and probably 2. Now I think it's kind of 50-50. I wouldn't be surprised if they held him out just this first game if it's not really there yet, just because they do have a decent alternative in A.D. Mitchell to put in the slot. And like I said, they need Josh to be ready to go the whole season and to be crisp. And I think they'll remember back to last year when, he played 17 games, but he played through a knee injury for all of them, and a real severe knee injury for about half of them, and his production fell in the second half. So he was out there, but he wasn't the same Josh Downs open all the time guy he was in the first half of his rookie year, which is what he looked like in training camp once he got over that knee injury and was fresh. That's the version they need to be back out there. They don't want to get into a spot like they were with Jonathan Taylor 2 years ago, where you're having him play on a high ankle sprain, but it's not healthy and it's not explosive, and you're just managing this every week, and they've got a bye week that's in December. So I wouldn't be surprised if they give him a week of rest, but it does seem like he's closer now to being back than I would have guessed at the initial onset of the injury.
So Nate Atkins of the Star, he's kind enough to join us here on this Tuesday leading up to week number 1 of the NFL season on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. Hey, who among those that cover the Colts, or at least do these predictions at the Star, had them with the best record and the worst record? Do you remember?
Are you talking about this year?
Yeah, going into this year with their predictions. Best and worst record. Do you remember?
Yeah. So I know Joel Erickson has them at 11-6, and our editor Nat Newell, who he didn't publish his, but he's made it public that he thinks they're going 7-10. So that's kind of the range, and I guess I'm right in the middle at 9-8.
Now that's why I asked the question. I think right there, that completely and accurately describes why I asked the question right there. So, well done, buddy. Hey, we'll see you up at the press box on Sunday, Nate. Appreciate you.
All right, sounds good. Should be a fun time.
It's Nate Atkins of the Star of the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. So, this leads us down the path to this question. And hi, my name is John. Thank you for joining us today. Are you more in the 7-win or the 10-win domain? What do you say? Joel Erickson had them at 11? Man. That seems like pretty significant high ground right there. Would you go with 7 or 10? If you were put on the spot, hey, I've got to say either 7 or 10 right here. What would you say? I'm not going to tell you to take your fandom out of it because I know you can't. I understand that. 7 or 10? Yeah, the groin of Matt Gay will be talked about over the course of the rest of the week. And by the way, too, we're out twice, Thursday and Friday. Joe's Grill, week number 1. That's our Larceny Bourbon Locks, Luna Azul Tequila Shots in Castleton with our betting analyst, Brent Halverson. Rick Venturi on Thursday, too, in the 5 o'clock hour. And Friday, the Ale Emporium in Greenwood. Bud Light Blue Friday, and we have Texans Colts tickets to give away. So, yeah, rest of the week, make sure you mark it down to hang out with us. It is going to be an absolute blast. All right, quick break. We shall return. I got bullseye passes to give away for, I'm telling you, the best tailgate of all time. And Kyle Kinnett has done it again. I'll explain that. Maybe not today, but I'll explain it at some point what to expect, especially in the warmer days to start the season here down at the Bullseye Event Center. I promise you're going to love it. Got those passes to give away, and Jeff Lynn and ELO's coming up on Saturday night at Gainbridge Fieldhouse. Believe me, you will not want to miss that. Tickets all week long for that show as well. Quick break, we'll come back. Thoughts at 239-1070. Pat Boylan, top of the hour. And this is 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
And your father smelt of elderberries.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
TJ McConnell made it official today with a 4-year, $44.8 million extension with the Pacers. It includes a partial guarantee year 3 and team option in year 4. I think this is according to Hoops Hype. You guys ready? 25-26, that's 10.2 mil, 26-27, 11, 27-28, 11-8, and a team option and 11-8. 28 and 29. I just got this a little bit earlier. Can you believe the Pacers overpaid that much? And if you don't recognize by now the value of this guy to this team and consider the way that they play, that even furthers his value, you may be one dumb human being. Seriously. Just one really dumb human being. How do you watch them play? And believe me, we're so far past, well, he exemplifies exactly how you want other guys to play. He leads by example. No, you know what? Shelve that nerdery. He is really good at what he does, and he is vital to the system in which they play offensively. And again, if you think otherwise, you're one dumb human being. How could you at this point? Doug writes this, so 10 wins has to be the floor every single season. Disappointed in that our basic expectations have fallen so much in the post-Luck era, not to mention the post-Manning era. I bring that up all the time. People tend to forget the promises. This is what we're going to do. This is who we're going to be. Yeah, not this. The mess has been more consistent. Well, the mediocrity of the mess. Man, I hope that at one time Chris Ballard is absolutely right, and everybody else out there, including my dumb ass, absolutely wrong. Hopefully. Hey, JMV, your point that any tweet gets reaction on Caitlin Clark. We responded to a tweet about having no road games in that the IU game last year was one for her. It got the most likes we've ever seen. I'm telling you. And that was my comment to Tony East on Friday. I said, Tony East, seriously, you could send out a message on X and you could say, this is like Tony East, me being Tony East. No, I'm not going to do a Tony East voice. This is me being Tony East. Hey, I've got to go up and hit the can. I've got to take a whiz. I'll be back in a second. Hashtag Caitlin Clark. That would get you 2,500 likes. If you said, I'm going to get up and take a whiz, as long as you hashtag that Caitlin Clark, it is an absolute phenomenon. So true. JMV, I need your opinion. If you see a superstar athlete out shopping, would you ask for an autograph and picture or let them be? I wouldn't, just because of what I do. And again, it's not because they would know who I am, because they wouldn't. But I've never done that anyway. But I do think it just depends on the individual and the individual's personality. So, and you. I mean, most of the time they'd rather just like get in a, hey, flyby type of picture, but it just depends on the personality, depends on the type of day, type of week, type of month. You know, it's funny, we're all in the same gang when it comes to that because we're the same way. Depends on the type of day that you're having. But no, if you're asking me, I wouldn't. C-Rod, I wouldn't, because I've never done that, but I certainly wouldn't do it doing this. But Plus, I don't know how many I would, like, the taller dudes I recognize, I don't know how many people I would recognize because I got to get my vision checked here. I got to get, this is the next part I've got to get done here is some sort of, what's it called again? Laser eyeball surgery?
LASIK?
What? LASIK. That's what I got to get. LASIK. The small print screwing with me. James, jump on here really quick before the break, too, because we not only have our fantasy league, those are teams with a draft coming up tomorrow, but we also have a pigskin pick'em league that both of which the winner, and we finally, by the way, got given away the winner from a year ago.
Oh, really?
The
We finally gave that away.
Yes, it was. It was on Friday.
Almost
Saturday.
Saturday.
Yeah.
Almost a year to the date
Yes,
since
it was.
since they started the last
it was
one.
Saturday. So exactly. But no, we've got 2 bar restocks up for grabs. One is a regular fantasy league, and we'll get the draft in tomorrow. The other is a pick'em. Tell them how they can get to the pick'em here.
So the pigskin pick'em, it's open to whoever wants to join. So John here will be shooting out a tweet
I'll be
here
shooting
with the
out.
link.
Yes, I do a lot of shooting out.
Oh yeah, and then just click on the link, sign up, and you'll be good to go.
John will be shooting out a link. That sounds nasty. But no, that's for a bar restock as well. Winner take all. Gilly was the winner, and Gilly showed up at our show on Saturday. I saw Zach Osterman of the Star had this. One of the reasons why I brought it up a little bit earlier, too, but since did not double back to it. If IU wants to be taken seriously as a football school, it has to start behaving that way. Kurt Cignetti does, and I thought that the win and what took place on Saturday was perfect for everybody because Cignetti got to get and voice his opinion about, hey, you guys got to be staying. You guys got to stay. You can't leave in the third. You can't leave in the fourth. Stay here. We've got a new, and I hate using this term, but everybody does now. It makes me kind of ill, nauseous, if you will, but culture. Got a new culture. You got to stay. But it's going to take a minute. You just don't change that all of a sudden. And I know most football fans are incredibly excited about Kurt Cignetti, but you got to get more familiar with the product, and then you've got to see results from the product too. As I mentioned earlier, I was just shared. I had no idea what this meant. Fear of missing out. Evidently, it's called FOMO. You got kids in there, and you got a second half that was described by most IU fans as incredibly boring. And you have the fear of missing out. Hey, look what's going on out there in the field off of 17th Street or Bob Knight Way, as it should and will be called one of these days. Look what's going on out there. Look what's happening out there. It's a party. So it's not going to change like that. Yeah, I thought that Zach put together a pretty good article regarding that, too. So, BT Do is, you ready? BT Do is testing out my Caitlin Clark theory. I have constipation. Hashtag Caitlin Clark test. I think the test portion of it may lead. No, seriously, you guys, I'm going to retweet that. I'll get it started here. I have constipation. Hashtag Caitlin Clark.
You know what? I'll give it a retweet, too.
All right, we'll see how far this goes right here. Then maybe my theory's busted. Just a thought.
Say, I'm have the tweet up now, and I'm watching the retweets go up and up.
That is pretty good, though. I have constipation. Hashtag Caitlin Clark. Let's see if my theory holds true here. All right, quick break. We shall return. Pat Boylan is going to join us coming up at the top of the hour. I want to apologize to my guys on Tuesday night. I normally play, and I'm the one that always gripes about playing. I'm the one that cries, yeah, we got to play tonight. Got to play. We got to be there. And I can't make it tonight. It's kind of a last-minute deal, and I hate being that guy. My bad. My bad. So if anybody want to show up at CG West tonight and play, because evidently I may still make it there, but it doesn't look like I'm gonna. And I've been waiting for it was all weekend long. I could not get 10 together for nothing. And a shout out to my guy, the principal, down at Center Grove Central. We call him just the principal. Jason Wiseman, who would have opened up every day, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. And hell, I like full court 4-on-4. I couldn't get dudes to do that. What's the world coming to? I love full court 3-on-3. Couldn't get anybody to do that. What's happening here? Is this kind of the wustification of the world here that we can't go full court 3-on-3? I'm sorry. I'm not going to play half court. I'll play half court if you're playing against a 5-year-old, but I'm not going to play half court against dudes. So my bad tonight, guys. All right, quick break. We shall return. We got more Bullseye Event Center passes, the Colts VIP tailgate presented by Hayes & Sons Restoration. And Jeff Lynn and ELO, the legendary Jeff Lynn. And ELO, remember, they have not been around in central Indiana since 1981. True story. Before I hit puberty, ELO was here. So likely not again. That's Saturday night, and it's going to be a major event here in central Indiana. Somebody's going to win those tickets before the end of the show. Hey, sit tight. 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
with JMV.
This is your brain on drugs. Any questions?
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
I mentioned Danny O'Neal as a true freshman starter, San Diego State. Texas A&M Commerce was the team, so it was a game that they expected to win. It's a rebuild at San Diego State, but Danny was on the show last week. 214 through the air. I think 110 was his quarterback rating, a couple of touchdowns and no interceptions. I'm assuming that's exactly how everybody wanted his freshman season and San Diego State season to start. So congratulations to him. Yeah, exactly. I know a lot of you are wondering what we're going to see of Carson Steele coming up. Given the running back situation in Kansas City. Yeah, that is going to be worthy of watching. When everything opens up at 8:20, NBC and the Peacock. I'll be honest with you right now. I like the Peacock more than I do ESPN and DirecTV. I would rather be peacocked than DirecTV'd or ESPN'd. And if at the same time you give really bad news, could you have waited until the start of Get Up on Monday to screw everybody over? And then we would not have felt so screwed. It was like, oh, okay, great, thanks. Now, you just can't get away from it. No question about that. But Carson Steele, and I don't know if you saw this, Carson Steele, I think, is third on the depth chart at Kansas City. Samaje Perine was picked up. He is a veteran running back. The situation with Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who is going to miss time here the first 4 weeks of the season. But they have Pacheco, Perine, and Carson Steele, and we'll see if Andy Reid offensively finds any ways to utilize Carson Steele. As the season is officially underway coming up on Thursday on Peacock and NBC. Is that on NBC as well as Peacock? Both? Remember how easy it used to be just to know where all these games are? And now you're throwing a dart at a stinking dartboard. It's on NBC and Peacock on Thursday. I'll give you a great example of that, and we're going to talk to Pat Boylan coming up here at the top of the hour. So Pat Boylan had the Boilermakers and Indiana State in that slobber knocker on Saturday afternoon. 49-0 by the Boilermakers, but $500,000 to the Sycamores. Thus, lights can stay on. Electricity can remain, at least for the next couple of weeks. 49-0 was the final. Pat Boylan was doing that game. Pat Boylan did the Fever and the Wings in the Fever win on Sunday. But a lot of people on Sunday trying to find the Fever game, and you see NBA TV, and you go, well, wait a minute, I have NBA TV here. And what the hell's being blacked out about it? Because it was on Bally. Thus, you would have to have Bally. So I'll give you a great example. Those of you that didn't see the Pacers until the postseason because you didn't have Bally, then that was your issue with trying to see the Fever on Sunday. If you have Dish Network, you don't have Bally and didn't see it. Or, whatever else is the case. Like I said, it's like throwing a dart at a dart board. And trying to figure out where all this crap is. But believe me, those of you that have DirecTV content, much like I do, and I go back 24 stinking years. Now I was ripping it off from them long before that, stealing it, hijacking it, screwing them over, which I feel vindicated. But I have 24 years, and get zilch from that clown show that is DirecTV. And ESPN can stick it up their rear, too. All of you. I don't care who's in charge. If it's Jimmy Pintaro or Adam Schefter or any of those clowns, stick it. Yeah, negotiate with us. We're the ones that get screwed. Yeah, we're working for you. James, they're working for us. They want us. They're trying to save us. Now, here's what saves us. You guys don't screw us. That's what saves us. But I feel vindicated. 15 years of putting the screws to DirecTV. Not 1 ounce do I feel bad about that. Long live the Moonraker satellite dishes. All right, Pat Boylan on the other side. I've got Jeff Lynne ELO tickets to give away and more Bullseye Event Center passes, too, coming up. Sit tight.
The Ride with JMV.
It's 106 miles to Chicago. We got a full tank of gas, half a pack of cigarettes. It's dark, and we're wearing sunglasses. Hit it.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
James is the producer. You guys want to go to Bullseye? We got somebody out there that wants to go to Bullseye right now. Let's see how quickly somebody can dial here. James, are you watching the hotline right now? The first person that dials, I'm going to give you Bullseye event. There it is right there. See? Boom. The best pregame party around. So Kinnett told me on my ride in today that he is adding a putting green. I don't know. That excites the hell out of me right there. See, and really, it's you get booze the drink, right? All you can drink, all you can eat. DJ Skids doing what he did for the JMV takeover on Saturday night, which was absolutely outstanding. The best pregame party around. Thanks, James, for that. We'll be doing that all week. Sometimes I may just surprise you when I do it. Jeff Lynne and ELO, Saturday night, Cambridge Fieldhouse. Yeah, don't hold your breath that they're going to be around anytime again soon. because the last time they were here was 1981. When the host that is 54 years of age says, "That's before I hit puberty," it's been a long time. Those tickets are coming up all week long as well. Then 2 stops, me, Brent Halverson, that's Seven Hill Distillery, Larceny Bourbon Locks, and Luna Azul Tequila Shots, week number 1. Brent Halverson, our betting analyst. That means Nally and the gang hanging out with us. We're up in Castleton at Joe's Grill on Thursday. Rick Venturi with us on Thursday in the 5 o'clock hour as well. That's going to be a must-attend event. And then on Friday, it's our Bud Light Blue Friday Texans Colts tickets to give away for Sunday. We're going to be at the Ale Emporium in Greenwood with my friends from Zinc. Be good to see Jim Jr., the gang, back again. It's coming up on Friday. Ale Emporium down in Greenwood. Meantime, on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline, he has said in the past 4 hours via X that the Fever's magic number to clinch a playoff berth is 2. Now, there's a however, and I'm going to let him explain the however. Voice of the Fever was Big Ten Network working up in West Lafayette on Saturday afternoon, watching, fortunately for me, my Indiana State Sycamores being able to keep the electricity turned on by getting paid $500,000 to take a 49-0 beating at the hands of the Boilermakers. Pat Boylan, another fantastic call, joins us on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. Hello, Pat. How are you?
Hi, John. I'm doing well, and I appreciate that introduction.
Did you get a single flight out of West Lafayette straight to Dallas? Or no, I'm sorry. Where'd you go to? Arlington, Texas, right? So, yeah.
Yeah, just outside of Dallas there. I sprinted back to Indianapolis Airport and got out of there just in time. I was a little nervous. It was a 7 o'clock flight. Fortunately, or, I guess unfortunately for you, there wasn't quite as much traffic because the fans started to filter out a little bit, but we made it.
49-0 right there. Do you have a lot of content ready? A lot of filler?
One of the hardest parts about doing college football, and I'm so grateful to get the opportunity, is just how deep the rosters are. And when you unfortunately get a game like that, which I was hopeful, and I still think there's a pretty decent chance that Indiana State takes a nice step forward this year once they get into conference play. I'm kind of the Indiana State football guy because I did the IU-Indiana State game a year ago, too, for Big Ten. And I actually think this Indiana State team is significantly better than last year's team, but Purdue is just a different level of competition. The hardest thing about doing some of those games is just how deep the rosters are, and then when the game reaches blowout territory, I mean, there were I think 11 or 12 different receivers that took the field for Purdue, and Indiana State not that far from it. So. When you do basketball, you've got to know, WNBA basketball, you've got to know 20 to 24 players. College football, especially early season college football, you have to know 100. So there was certainly a lot more prep involved.
Yeah. Fill time, no doubt about that. And some, you just probably want to say, wow, that really sucked. In 49-0 games like that, it'd be hard. I know you're Mr. Professional. But with me, it'd be saying, my God, how bad what is this? I know it's different levels of football and all. And I like Kurt a great deal. And there's just so much to deal with over there. And there has been in the past. And it's one of the tougher gigs around. Always has been, always will be.
Yeah, and I think, obviously when you're 1-10, it's hard to not go up. But at the same time, I do think they found their quarterback. I like the Ples Lawrence kid that they have in the backfield there. They've got a couple players defensive. I mean, Garrett Olendike is a guy that, probably could be getting reps on Purdue. So I think they've got some players there, and I'll be really interested to see, the FCS versus FBS Big Ten type of matchup is just it's so hard to know what to take away from it, because I do think there's a good chance that Purdue showed some initial signs of being able to be pretty competitive in the Big Ten. And I also think that even though you didn't see it in a game like this because of the talent disparity in playing in two very different leagues, I think there's some evidence there that Indiana State might be on the climb. The challenge of a game like that is it's just, I mean, you can take away whatever you want from it. If you want to believe that, Purdue has taken these major steps forward. Well, 49-0 is impressive regardless of who you play. So I'll be interested to see, Purdue then gets Notre Dame here in a couple of weeks, and Indiana State. This is the only team anywhere near that caliber that Indiana State's going to play the rest of the year. So I'll be curious where both of those two teams are in 2 to 3 weeks from now.
It's Pat Boylan with us. I'll get to the Fever in just a second, but it was made official today. TJ McConnell with that extension. And, yeah, I'm glad that everybody finally came to the realization his level of importance to this team here moving forward. And obviously the extension tells you all you need to know about that.
Yeah, when I saw that news, the first thing that went through my head was going back to the season opener when Rick Carlisle was really distraught to share the news that they were going to start the season with TJ McConnell out of the rotation. And it was nothing that McConnell had done, but everything that Tyrese Halliburton and Andrew Nembhard had done, and an eye toward development and all of that. And if you think about it, I mean, Halliburton had a great year. Nembhard unquestionably had a great year. So it wasn't like he got playing time because of anything that those guys did negatively, and yet he proved he was so impactful that the Pacers had to use him. And that's the coolest part of the story to me is when that day happened, it looked like, that it might be the beginning of the end for McConnell just here and at no fault of his own. But when you have two young, talented point guards, you could have seen a scenario where that was the case. And yet he played so well, he refused to let that happen. So I think it's a real testament to just, his mindset and his style of play and his energy. And I'm not explaining anything here that nobody listening doesn't know already. But also, I think the coaching staff deserves some kudos, too, for making that work, because there's not a lot of NBA teams that can get 3 point guards the type of minutes that they did and make it work, especially offensively, like this coaching staff did. And he's earned every ounce of this, and obviously is a fan favorite. It's terrific news for the franchise and for the fan base to know that he's going to be around for the foreseeable future.
To me, he's at the top of the list of essential personnel. When you have Tyrese Halliburton exit the game, he comes in and he maintains the pace that Halliburton had. And that pace, to keep up with, offensively speaking, is what you have to do. That's what makes this Pacer team different and good. And if you subtract any of that at all, then obviously things aren't the same. And you can go through some down times, but when TJ comes in the game, you really don't miss a beat. And I love the fact that he has earned that from being the guy where everybody has said, hey, he plays and he'll teach guys, and guys will, watch him play, and they're taught by example. Bullcrap. He's a really talented NBA player that is essential personnel to this Pacer team, which has been really good as well. And that's all any longer that needs to be said.
No question. And I love the other part of this that I love for him is just for so long he's had kind of the label of, can you believe that this guy is able to be an NBA player? Because when you initially look at him, you don't think that's the case. And that's always kind of been, wow, look at his ability to get so much out of his skill set and all of that, which all of that is absolutely true. But at the same time, he's a darn good basketball player. And so for that to become part of his story too is not so much this look at this feel-good story. It's this guy's really important to what was a really good team a year ago. And you have to be careful with stats like per 36, which basically say per 36 minutes, for example, what are your stats? It's a way to, show impact minute on the floor. You have to be careful with that because if I do something over the course of 6 minutes, it doesn't mean necessarily that I'm doing things at the level of somebody playing 36 minutes a game. But I bring it up to say when you look at numbers like per 36 or just per minute on the floor efficiency and effectiveness, his assist numbers are right there with Tyrese Halliburton. So it kind of buttresses your point of when Halliburton comes out of the game, McConnell comes in, and he's not Halliburton, but for an off-the-bench guy, for pace, for energy, and to keep the high level of passing and vision up, I do think it's so important. And I also think it probably speaks really well to Andrew Nembhard, who is an up-and-coming rising young potential star in this league, that he can make all of that work too. Because, again, Halliburton's going to get 34 minutes a game, and so you've only got maybe 14 other minutes out there for those two guys, and easily they could both all eat up the backup point guard minutes, but they find a good way to work on the floor together. Nembhard can play off the ball, I think, really well. He can play off the ball with McConnell. He can play off the ball, of course, with Halliburton. And then we saw in the Boston series, even though they were losses, what he could do at point guard. So I think he deserves a lot of credit in making all of this work, too.
It's Pat Boylan, who is the voice of the Fever, part of the Pacers radio network as well, on the Andy Moore Automotive Group power line and Big Ten Network, as we saw him do the Boilermaker Indiana State game on Saturday. So I had to listen to the show. I said this to Tony East Friday. I said, if you hashtag Caitlin Clark in anything that you send, that it will gain traction on X just by hashtag Caitlin Clark. So as a test, he put, I have constipation, hashtag Caitlin Clark. So what do you think? Will that get a lot of traction on X?
You know what? It wouldn't shock me if it did, because the fan base, the following around her. I was laughing at this a little bit with some of our digital crew who knows this better than anybody. But I mean, I was sitting on the plane coming home from Dallas a couple of nights ago, and was like, let's look up some numbers. So I looked up where she and where Kelsey Mitchell rank in scoring out of the Olympic break, which, by the way, is Mitchell 1 and Clark 2 in the Eastern Conference out of the Olympic break. They're the top two scorers in the conference. And then I was looking up, for players that average the assists that she does, where does she rank among scorers, which is first all time for players that have averaged 7 assists per game at least in a season, and just fired off a couple of tweets. And I mean, the level of response and engagement that you're getting on something like that I'm getting on something like that, is on par with maybe the very top Pacers tweets that I've had this season in terms of just engagement. And it's just, the national following with her is just remarkable. And it's so cool to see. It's so cool to see when, especially even if they're not always about Caitlin. I mean, even today, the tweet about the clinching a playoff berth, of course, she's a huge part of that and part of this team. But one thing that I've enjoyed is watching a lot of these Iowa fans and Caitlin Clark fans that have followed her for years kind of become fans of the other players. I mean, Kelsey Mitchell's gotten a lot of love lately. Lexi Hull's gotten a lot of love lately from that group. And you know what? It's just so cool to see, because I think back to just a couple of years ago, they're playing at the Coliseum during renovations. Attendance was sparse. People weren't engaging on Indiana Fever tweets. And now it's one of the hottest tickets out there. And anything Caitlin Clark related on Twitter or X absolutely explodes.
So what's Cheryl Swoop's problem here? What's happening?
That's a great question. I was really interested to see how Dallas would handle that, and they handled it. So she and Nancy Lieberman, who are two legends of the game, they're both color analysts, but it's pretty fascinating to me to see just the 2 degrees that those two have taken, which is, Swoops has gone out of her way, in my opinion, seemingly to not give Clark any sort of accolades. I mean, she had the comment a week or two ago where the Fever are playing well out of the Olympic break, and she listed like 4 or 5 players and didn't list Clark. And it's not the crime of the century, but it's like, come on here. We all see what's going on. The Fever are having this incredible run. And it's, of course, not just Caitlin Clark, but she's a massive, massive part of this. She was named Player of the Week for the second consecutive week here just a couple of hours ago. So I just – it's confounding to me. Look, everybody can have their opinion and all of that, and that's what makes sports great, and sports talk shows like yours work. But at the same time, how can you not see this player who's come in and, by the way, has a pretty good chance, I think, of being on the All-WNBA first team, which means you have to have a top 5 season. And at minimum, she will finish on one of those 2 teams, which means she'll have a top 10 season this year. Bring in the attraction, bring in the eyeballs, have the type of season she has, and then just bring such negativity to it. I just don't get it. And the interesting thing is the Wings, didn't have her do that game. They had Nancy Lieberman do it, and she couldn't have been more complimentary of Clark. So it was almost interesting to hear a road broadcast be that complimentary. I, of course, didn't watch it. We were doing our own, but I've gone back and seen some of the clips, and she was in the interview room. So, yeah, two different schools of thought.
Why Cheryl Swoops just seems to be jealous? Is that the root of it all here? Is just jealous of the amount of attention that Caitlin Clark is getting?
Yeah, I don't know what it is. I've been trying to figure that out, and it's a lost cause. You can't go inside the brain of anybody, but try to figure out like what might be causing that. And to be honest, I don't know. It's a guessing game. I think maybe at some points she's tried to view it as coming from the angle of, look, there are many other great players in this league that have done many other great things. Let's not forget about them. And that is absolutely true. But at no point should there be any denigration toward the great disruptor, as Debbie Antonelli likes to say, the great disruptor in women's basketball history, what she's brought. And again, I'm saying nothing that anybody listening doesn't already know, but the point that I always drive home in all of this is Caitlin Clark is not a controversial figure. She's never said anything controversial. She's never done anything but say all of the right things. So the fact that she sometimes gets caught up in this controversy is frustrating and a little mind-boggling because she's done absolutely nothing but come in, bring huge eyeballs to the product, bring tons of ticket sales, and the TV numbers are off the charts, and every single player is going to benefit from this so massively because that's revenue coming in that then gets split among them. And then she's done nothing controversial in any right. So, look, everybody's allowed to have their opinion, and if it's whether she should be first team all WNBA or not, that's a fair discussion and a fair debate. But to sit there and act like she's not been a part of what the Fever have done here, it's just silly. And I don't always find myself on the Stephen A. Smith camp, but in this case I do, because when you're a former player who's frankly a legend in this game, which Cheryl Swoops absolutely is, and then when you obviously don't include Clark in conversation that she should be at the very top of the list in, then it just kind of reflects negatively on you because anybody can see this. You don't need to be a legend of the game to see this. So if you are and you're saying these things, then it just kind of reflects poorly on you. And that's really too bad because Cheryl is a legend. And it's just disappointing that somebody in her position would be, I guess, in the position that she is.
Yes. I don't know if you don't know by now. And the thing that I pointed to, so I'm up at Mystic Waters on Friday throughout the weekend up in Pendleton. And I said, hey, let's go over to Wolfie's in Pendleton and watch the end of the Fever game. I would have said that prior to this year, right around never. So it's the first time. And I will celebrate. It's the first time. And there started to be one reason, and now you're getting all these other offshoots of interest that are becoming reasons. And everybody now seems to be more and more zoned into this where they haven't been in the past. And it does seem like it's incredibly beneficial to others, even those that are a little bit worn out or jealous of the subject matter that created this in general.
If I had $1 for every story like the one you just told, I'd be a rich man. And that's just in the last couple of months. I mean, the amount of people, whether it's friends of mine or whether it's somebody I've run into on the street or at a game or wherever that say, hey, this – I was watching intently in the third quarter of a game on Tuesday where I had worked. I mean, the fact that people care at this level and have been watching to this degree is just – It's an incredible transformation, and it's so good for the team. It's so good for the WNBA. And I think part of the problem is like multiple things can be true at once. And I think some people maybe struggle with that, which is a few things are true here. One, the WNBA has been on an upward trajectory for a long time. And that would have been the case if Caitlin Clark was a professional soccer player. But Caitlin Clark coming in has absolutely turbocharged all of that momentum and skyrocketed it. And Are there other great players in the WNBA? Of course. I mean, Asia Wilson's probably going to win MVP. There are numerous other great players, and some of them, I would say, deserving of more attention than they're getting or that they got in the past. None of that's Caitlin Clark's fault. And to not see just the incredible things that her presence and her skill set, Debbie brought it up in our very first telecast. If she's not doing the type of things she's doing, and if she's not working at her game as hard as she was when she was 14 and 15 and 16 and 17, then we maybe don't have this moment. And if we don't have this moment, then all of these, all the other players and the league as a whole maybe doesn't get this massive boost into the spotlight. And so, there is a level of being grateful for that I think is important that is addressed here. And, it's just, as somebody that's had the good fortune to cover this team for 10 years, and I've been an advocate for the WNBA and the players in this league for so long, it's such good basketball. I wish there, maybe at times were more interest in it in the past. But right now, seeing the Fever being covered like an NBA team previously, or seeing them being a part of the discussion like they are, an NFL team, I mean, that's so cool to me. And we'd be silly to not recognize the biggest reason why that's happening. And, of course, it's Caitlin Clark.
All right, give us that timetable of getting a playoff spot here.
Yeah, so the Fever actually can clinch tonight. There's a decent chance of it because if Atlanta and Chicago both lose, that's going to clinch a playoff spot for the Fever tonight. And Chicago is at Las Vegas and Atlanta is at Phoenix. So it's two teams that are on the road and playing two teams ahead of them in the standings. There's part of me that kind of hopes one of those doesn't go the Fever's way tonight, because I think it would be really fun for them to clinch in a game that they win and to clinch in a game at home and all of that. But, of course, you can't control that, and never are you going to complain about clinching a playoff berth. Fever haven't been in the playoffs since 2016. That's when Tamika Catchings hung them up. The last playoff game the Fever have played in was Tamika Catchings' very last game. So this has been a long time coming. A major celebration necessary, regardless of how it happens. But if both those two teams lose tonight, the Fever will get it done tonight. Now, another unfortunate aspect is that those two games are at 10 p.m. So we might not know that until midnight or so tonight. But if one of those two games goes the other direction, or if both of them go the other direction, then the Fever have a chance to clinch a playoff berth for the first time since 2016 at home Wednesday. Tomorrow against the Sparks. We'll have the broadcast. Obviously, tickets are available, and that could be a really cool moment if it does come to be.
So Pat Boylan right there, the voice of the Fever, the Pacers Radio Network, Big Ten Network. You got a game this weekend again, Big Ten Network-wise?
I do not, no. We'll see if there are any more coming, but for now it was just the Purdue-Indiana State game.
I was going to say, you got to get some more on that schedule there. They have like 90 teams now. You would think they could spread the wealth around a little bit.
They do have like 90 teams now, but they've also got all of these other national networks and ABC getting back in with the Big Ten and Fox and all of that. So I am here if they want me, and if not, I'm grateful for the one I got.
Even though she hasn't been on the show yet because they haven't gotten back with me and they're dragging their feet on this, I think, unfortunately, I came in second to treatment last week, which, okay, whatever. But I've been trying to get Lexi Hall on this show for the last week, because I think she's been terrific for them.
She absolutely has been terrific. And I'm not a huge fan of the X Factor type of phrase, but she has been that. Now, look, Clark and Kelsey Mitchell have been playing out of this world, out of the Olympic break. But what Lexi Hull has brought is something that the Fever did not previously have, which is a wing defender who you can put on the other team's best player, and then somebody who's going to knock down shots. She is the prototypical 3-and-D player. You know, she's just had a fascinating year, because at the All-Star break or the Olympic break, same thing, she was shooting, I think, 28% from three, and then out of the Olympic break, she's at 68% from the three-point line, and that's jettisoned her all the way up to second in the WNBA in three-point shooting. So for somebody like her, She's going to go guard the other team's best player. She's made tons of huge plays down the stretch offensively and defensively. And when she's knocking down shots, she's a really, really valuable player, and it's been so good to see for her. And she's been really impactful here, and I would expect her to continue to get these starting minutes, to continue to get significant playing time. And if she can keep knocking down shots, she's going to have a role here for a very long time.
So you think that when she's doing treatment, can they hand her a phone and have her come on the show? Is that hard?
You know what? That might be an email or a question directed to somebody else.
Well, okay, treatment. All right, then hand her a phone and we'll do about 10 minutes. Because my whole theory is this: now is the time to really take advantage of everybody else in the spotlight as well, and give them some pub. Where I think we all know this: had it not been for Caitlin Clark, this is not where we would be right now. So that's been my theory.
That's exactly right. Caitlin Clark coming to this team has been what has pushed them from last year, a team that took a nice step forward into the playoff conversation, but it hasn't been just her. It's been Kelsey Mitchell's the league leading scorer out of the Olympic break. We just talked about Lexi Hull a little bit. Aaliyah Boston, they haven't looked her way as much offensively lately, but she is just such a consistent force and already one of the best defensive bigs in the league. And everybody does deserve some shine. It kind of goes back to the point I was making earlier. Like, there's no question Caitlin Clark's impact on the floor, in the stands, and in the TV ratings, but there's also no question that there's other players doing some great things too. So Lexi Holt's one of them. I appreciate you bringing her up. And
yes, man, I'd like to have her on the show if somebody ever get back with me here. Come on. What are we doing?
I'll put in a word for you.
Please do. Say, hey, can you do treatment and come on with John too? He'd appreciate it. Hey, by the way,
see what we can do.
Yeah, thank you very much. Pat,
of a conversation.
Pat Harris sent this to me before we go to a break, to both of us, in fact. Swoop sees Caitlin Clark as the person she is. CC may say the right things to you, but her T's say something else. She has to get her mouth and attitude cleaned up. And my response was, from the old Different Stroke show, what you talking about, Willis?
I'm glad you said it.
I don't quite get that.
Totally
I don't quite get it. Do you get it?
No, I don't get it.
I don't either. And I would go to you as the authority because you're right there next to it. I'm watching from Wolfies and Pendleton. What the hell do I know? But you're right there next to it.
Yeah, no, I don't. I'm not totally following there, but you know what? There's no question. There's the Caitlin Clark that is the very well-spoken, sensationally well-spoken individual, but then there's also the fiery competitor too. She's got both of those things going for her, but that's what makes her great on the floor. And typically, those type of players maybe are a little more controversial or maybe aren't as well-spoken. I think that's what's just amazing about her in general is she has all of those fiery attributes to be one of the greatest of all time, and then she has the ability to sit down in a chair in front of a microphone right after a hotly contested game and say all the right things. And I sure as heck know when I was 22, I was not saying all of the right things. I was saying most of the wrong things. So that's the other thing. Like, it's so easy to forget she's 22 years old by the way she speaks, she acts, she handles herself. I mean, she's the complete package, and that's really probably the best way to sum it up. We're so fortunate that she's playing here in Indiana.
Well, tell Lexi tomorrow, right? Are you going to be down there tomorrow?
I'll be down there tomorrow.
All right. Well, tell her tomorrow. Say, hey, man, can anybody get back here? This guy's sitting up here waiting for you to be done with treatment.
I bet Lexi would be all aboard this conversation trend.
Oh, well, she's from Spokane, Washington originally. We could have a hell of a conversation. Vision Quest and Gonzaga and all that crap that I'm sure she's too tired to talk about from hearing about it before. So, yeah, all of it.
She's one of, I would say, probably my favorite just conversations on the team. So I'm confident, John, in this happening. I'm confident in it happening soon. And when it does happen, I'll be listening.
Oh, yeah, she went to Stanford, too, so we could talk about her being really smart. So, yeah.
She's pretty bright.
Yeah. And we can compare me at Indiana State and her at Stanford. So, yes.
Yeah, I don't know if Ball State and Indiana State quite stack up there.
All right, man. I appreciate you. Thanks, Pat.
Thanks, John. Take care.
Pat Boylan on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. What did you talk about, Willis? The late, great Gary Coleman. Different Strokes. You ever watch Different Strokes, James? Philip Drummond became their dad. Todd Bridges, Gary Coleman. 1978 to 1985, I think.
Just a little
Different
before my time.
Strokes. And then they brought that little redheaded kid on there that looked like Hagen and just completely jumped the shark. I mean, it was already pretty much done anyway, but they brought, what was his name, Sam? It looked like Hagen's twin. They brought this little dude on. It just, oh, my God. All right, quick break. We shall return. I got more stuff to give away. Sit tight. It's coming. 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
Bobby, I'm your white knight.
93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
A man is born, he's a man of means. Then along come two, they got nothing but their jeans. Now, wait a minute. They got nothing but their jeans as in their jeans. Family jeans or blue jeans? Do we know yet?
A pair of Levi's.
Family jeans, blue jeans. So what? That's a theme song right there to Different Strokes. Late, great Gary Coleman.
I will say, according to the lyrics on Spotify, it spells jeans Jeans. Not.
So they got nothing but their blue jeans.
I'm assuming, yes.
Okay, then. I think you could debate that, I think, if you wanted, maybe. JMV, why should anyone care about the opinions of someone who has an apostrophe fetish? It was just sent to me, and I was kind of curious. Maybe I'm missing out on something here. I don't know. I'm not mad at it. I just don't get the take, which I know you guys on a daily basis get 5 or 6 from me. You go, hey, wait a minute. I don't get that at all. What? What do you say? That was a good thing that Signetti got to get mad at the student fan section? What? What do you mean? Must-win situation in week 1 with 16 more to go? You numbnuts? What are you talking about? I get that every single day. So I definitely understand that. Yeah, Different Strokes. Outstanding. JMV, did you ever get an answer for the guy that asked about seeing a famous person out and asking for an autograph? I don't know if we ever got a significant answer. You should ask for pictures with famous people. I was asked to take a few pictures with a guy over at Union Jacks over in Speedway maybe 10 years ago. I don't know who the hell that's. Who's that from? Shout out the old school Union Jack and Speedway, too. One more time, James, how people can sign up our Pigskin Pick'em. Have I not sent that out yet? Have you sent it out?
I sent you the link for it for you to tweet out.
You son of a gun, have you?
Yes, I have. Well, anyway, John's going to tweet out something here in a little bit, a link to the Pigskin Pick'em group that we're doing.
That's a bar restock, Heaven Hill Distillery, too. Go ahead, James.
Yep. Just click on the link, make your profile, sign up, and you'll be good to go.
So we're doing that with the team in our team draft. Those that are in the league, that draft is tomorrow. What time?
Tomorrow at 8:30.
8:30 at night. What am I doing at 8:30 tomorrow night?
You'll be drafting.
See, it's not one thing. And a lot of people like to get together. I know it's a thing. I've never been somebody that needed to get together. I like doing it online. It's fun as hell. And it gets it over easy. I haven't really thought about mine yet, James. Go ahead.
Just you're talking about how you never drafted online before. I actually, I'm in a fantasy league. Me and my buddies had a little party for it on Saturday. Yeah, it was a good time. Did you
spark up during that party, James?
Well, there was some there were some libations being passed around, but
you spark up.
But I will
take Patrick Mahomes.
I will say it is fun when your buddy. Or when you take your buddy's prize draft pick right before he's about to pick, and then you can look him in the eyes and laugh at him.
Okay. I get it. The beat the clock aspect of it online, though, I like that. It's like, oh, man, am I going to screw this up? Is it going to take it? I don't mind that at all. So that's coming up tomorrow if you're in the league. And again, if you're not, I will send out the link where you can participate in our Pigskin Pick'em. And the prize package is the same across the board. It is a bar restock. And Gilly finally got her bar restock on Saturday and then sent me an X message later on in the night and said, holy crap. I'm telling you what, Brent Halverson goes all out, friends. I mean, you know that's true. All out. Hey, this weekend, once again, thank you all for joining us at Mystic Waters Campground. It was an absolute blast. On Friday with the show, this show on Saturday with the JMV Takeover. DJ Skids, incredible. Cam was the engineer who basically ran a board on site, and AJ was the producer, and he ran the board back in the B1057 studio. It was great. I cannot thank them enough. And everybody from Brent Halverson and Lisa, Sierra, Romy, Sarah, Brandon, the grilled cheese guy, the guy with Slow and Low Barbecue out of Broad Ripple. Sarah brought the pizza from Papa John's. It was a hell of a time. And shout out to Scott Wolf and the gang at Wolfie's over at Pendleton. We went over there to watch the end of the Fever game on Friday night before the storms came in. A hell of a time. That somebody had asked me that. That's what I want to do. I never want to half-ass what I'm doing here. When you're half-ass and it's time to go. And I want to do as much that makes it when you get consultants that say unique and organic, they have no idea most of the time in radio what they're talking about because their head's stuck so far up their ass anyway, and they've never accomplished anything. But that's unique and organic. If they had any idea what they were talking about in general, that's what it is. To get everybody involved and to get everybody, this is what we try to do here, what I try to do on Saturday, to give you a product that you just can't get anywhere else. Actually, I came down here yesterday to do a couple of things. I came down here yesterday and I sat at B and I go, man, I feel like jumping on here and doing like 2 hours in the middle of the afternoon. What the hell? And that's the stuff that works in a world where you have way too many choices. I mean, really, we all have way too many choices. But that's what you need to strive to do, especially on the local level here, which is so incredibly special to me. But thank you all for being a part of it. It was, as they like to say, unique and organic over the weekend in Pendleton at Mystic Waters Campground. All right, we got the Harrah's Hoosier Park race of the day. Speaking of which, 50-50 betting and dining from Harrah's Hoosier Park Racing and Casino in Anderson. And we've got Jeff Lynne and ELO tickets to give away. That show's coming up on Saturday night. Cambridge Fieldhouse, somebody's going to win that and more, and somebody's going to get 50-50 in betting and dining from Harrah's Hoosier Park Racing and Casino in Anderson. The race of the day is now.
Stone magazine that my last words were, I'm on drugs.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Don't crank it up for me, James. Jeff Lynne and ELO. Don't bring me down. No. That's just me. I'm full speed and always up. I'll tell you once more. Number 9 at 239-1070. Jeff Lynne and ELO. Gainbridge Fieldhouse coming up on Saturday. The last time they were in Central Indiana was in 1981 at Assembly Hall in Bloomington, where Hall & Oates opened up for them. And ELO with Jeff Lynne. This weekend, it is going to be a blast. Number 9 at 239-1070. Go and have an absolute blast on me, please. Which sounds really weird the way I just put that, but you know what I mean, right? Have fun. Sometimes I do. I just say things and they sound really odd or awkward, and I know you guys all cringe because you tell me about it. I'll go home and my kids will say, wait, why'd you say that? I said, because your dad's not very bright. Harris Hoosier Park race of the day. Shout out Rick Moore, Tony Rins we saw on Friday up in Pendleton. Toby C is your winner of the 50-50 in betting and dining. Courtesy of Harris Hoosier Park Racing and Casino in Anderson. Caviar Cooper, the winning horse. That was $15.40 on a $2 bet. $76.20 on the $2 exacta. The 50-cent trifecta went for $87.35. Your Harris Hoosier Park race of the day. And Toby is your winner. Do that coming up again tomorrow. Who's going to go see ELO? You know what ELO stands for, James?
Electric Light Orchestra.
Oh, there you go, brother.
I do also have it right in front of me.
You're looking
on the
in
screen,
front
yeah.
of it. Okay. Who won?
I'm sorry?
Do I like the person that won?
It was Justin Noel.
Justin Noel. I like Justin a great deal. Well done, Justin. You know, it's weird. I bet I have met most of you out there right now, which some of you you'd say, well, maybe your audience isn't very big. I think I've met most of you out there. Shout out. All right, 239-1070, maybe a couple of calls before we bail. Matt Taylor and I, the Colts Daily Update coming up at the top of the hour. Colts offensive lineman Will Fries joins the fellas coming up here after 6. Meantime, 239-1070 is the number, and here is Bill. Bill, hello, how are you?
Hey, JMV. Jeff Lynne, a member of the Traveling Wilburys.
Yes.
There's not a whole lot of them left. So
coming to the end of the line. It's all right. Now, the Traveling Wilburys consisted of Jeff Lynne, Tom Petty, Roy Orbison, George Harrison.
Correct.
Is that all of them?
There's probably, I don't know who played the bass or anything like that, but that was the basic.
Is anybody alive outside of Jeff Lynne that were a part of the Traveling Wilburys?
Dylan.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, he was too. Sorry. So you got two of the group.
So only two of them. Two of them left. So
gotcha.
That will definitely be an excellent show. But
yes, it will.
I got an explanation or a theory why Lexi Hall did not return any of your telephone calls.
No, please be cool with me. All right, be cool.
I will.
All right,
I will.
Yeah.
There was a post game press conference that went viral where Lexi Hall, Caitlin Clark, and Boston were the three Fever on the panel, and they asked Hall about her defense. And this is a quote. So she said that she's out there to get her hands on as many balls as she possibly could.
Come on, man.
No,
I said be careful with that.
Well, that's it. That is a direct quote, and it's
it's basketball. That's what happens when you're playing good defense. You could have said deflections, and it would have been much better.
I want to be precise and everything, but I think that she is the Derek McKee to the Fever, as McKee was.
I like that. That's a good comparison because that translates, Billy, to winning ways right there. So yes.
Yeah, and he was not forgotten by any stretch of the imagination, but the Chicago Bulls only won 7 games once in a playoff series, and it was against the Pacers, and it was when Derek McKee guarded Michael Jordan primarily the whole series.
Yep. Hey,
so,
Billy, I got to run Thursday and Friday on the road. We'll see you then, right?
It'll be at Joe's.
You got it. Joe's Grill Thursday. Larceny Bourbon Locks, Luna Azul Tequila Shots. Betting analyst Brent Holverson. Rick Venturi is going to be on that show Thursday. Friday, Ale Emporium, Greenwood, Bud Light Blue Friday, Texans, Colts tickets. You guys have been fantastic. James, thank you, yet this is not over. Matt Taylor and I, Colts Daily Update, straight ahead. Don't leave. It's 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.